guys, what's up? It's Dan here. Welcome to another episode of the DanQ review. Today we are going to be talking about Resistance 3, PlayStation 3 exclusive, third in the franchise. First we'll do a brief opening, very brief. Resistance 3 is a first-person shooter developed by Insomniac Games and published by Sony. Not a whole lot to really introduce, considering this is the third in the series. By now everyone knows what Resistance is about, but for those who don't, I'll give you a brief intro. Basically, this virus has infected the Earth and turned the world pretty much into a species known as Chimera. I don't want to go too much into it because this is the first Resistance game I've played, and I know a lot of fans are probably going to go jump down my neck if I get too detailed. But regardless, let's just get right into it. Based on what I think about this game, picks up right from where Resistance 2 left off. You play as a different protagonist this time around. You play as Joe. What's his last name? Joe Capelli. I knew it was Italian. I couldn't recall. And which is different because you're used to playing a different character for the first two games. I'm not going to do any spoilers in this review, so you guys don't have to worry. But basically, we're going to start off visually. How do I like the game? Visually, this game is amazing. You should see. I commented on it many times what I thought of it. Mainly in the single player, but that's mainly where you really stop and smell the roses, so to speak. The scenery is gorgeous. There's so much to see. There's detail. I remember looking at the water currents. They were really nice. So as a pro to this game, the graphics are really nice. A lot of detail. When you were in a snowstorm, it looked like it was snowstorm. When it rained, it looked like it was real rain. That's what they really did well. Visually, this game is really nice. Now, also, in terms of, be that as it may, we have to go into more important aspects like the controls and the gameplay. The controls are actually surprisingly easy to get into. The controls don't require a whole lot of learning. There's not, like sometimes when you're playing a game, you'll feel the sensitivity is so weird for me. I'm not used to it. Well, this was a really average sensitivity, so you're good. You're not worried about missing things. I picked up on the game really quickly, like faster than normal. Even though I did play the beta earlier in the game, earlier in the year, I can't remember when it was, a month ago, something like that. But anyways, really easy controls to get into. That's another plus. Controls are not hard to get into. So if you're new to first-person shooters, you might struggle a little bit. But if you're familiar with any sort of first-person shooter, you should be able to get into this game no problem. Now that's something. Those two together are already good enough to catch your interest. Easy controls, nice graphics. Visually, it looks good. How's the storyline? The storyline itself, it ranges in length. The thing is, if you're really good at this game, or if you know how to do this type of thing, you've played the other Resistance games. This stuff is like clockwork to you. You could probably finish it rather fast, like maybe 5 hours, which is pretty short. But since this was my first time through, I don't know how long it took me. But I'd probably say about 7.5 to 7-8 hours, something like that. So when you think about it, the length of the game is average. It's not overly long. It's not overly short. Normally that's what you want. So if you want a really long story, you guys might be a little disappointed in that retrospect. But in my opinion, the length of it is okay. It's not the best, but it's alright. It does the job. Because like I noticed towards the end of the game, I was starting to feel like they were kind of dragging it out. And I was like, okay, this is one thing after another. It's basically just the same thing, just in a different location. So I'm like, this one section could have been cut out, and we would have had the same feeling at the end of the game. But other than that, the length is average. I don't want to go too crazy into it, but it's definitely worth a look at, definitely, because the length will at least keep you entertained for a good period of time. Now the storyline. How is the storyline? It's generic. That's the thing. It's too generic for me. There's so many FPS games out there, and it's tough to differentiate different FPSs, I'm like, every time I pick up an FPS game, I'm like, oh god, another one of these. Am I really going to be enjoying the story mode? Because let's be honest, FPS games are usually focused on multiplayer. Now, multiplayer is good and dandy, but not everybody likes a single-player story. So, that's something I think they could have worked on. But, you know, what you can't really, you got, like, they knew that they had to focus on a certain thing. They knew, okay, what I didn't understand was the fact that this game was 3 years in development. And in those 3 years, they couldn't really make a storyline to really suit the needs of both the multiplayer enthusiast and the story enthusiast. Instead, they kind of went towards the multiplayer enthusiast. Like, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the story. I thought it was good, but that's just it. It was good. It was average. It wasn't the best. So in terms of a con, the storyline could have been improved greatly. Definitely. I mean, it was decent, but it was too generic for me. That's my taste in it. But honestly, I wasn't shocked. It was just like when I played Killzone 3 earlier this year. It's very similar. It's not the same game at all, but I was left with the same feeling. You know, this is so regular. I want something new that really stands out. Certain games do that. Certain FPS games do that, but there's a comfort zone, and that's the thing. A lot of these developers are staying in the comfort zone, and therefore they'll go with what feels good to them. And instead of taking a risk, that's the problem. When you take a risk, you could lose your very dominant fan base, or you could gain more people and be like, wow, they really stepped it up. I think they should have went with that risk because they knew, like this game, the way it ends, I'm not going to spoil anything, but it looks like it could be the end of the series, you know what I mean? Like, you could comfortably say, okay, that's it for Resistance. There's no more Resistance games coming out. And I can see that. If they bring up another one, I don't see how they would bring it back. I mean, at one point I remember hearing a journal saying the war is far from over, but I don't know. It's comfortably finished. So when you say, can it be continued? Probably, but the storyline would probably be really stupid in that one. That's just what I'm saying. So if you look at the single player, let's look at the positive. Positive, you've got great graphics, really nice environments, great sound for that matter as well. Not like honestly, half the time, tons of explosions were going on. It was like I was in the war zone, and I was like, God, I gotta turn down my headphones. This is ridiculous, you know? Just explosion after explosion. So audio and graphics-wise, this game is really, really good. If you play games for not just the enjoyment or the storyline or whatever, and you like it for the effects and the visual and the audio effects, you're gonna really enjoy it because this game has a lot of detail. Now, control-wise, very simplistic controls. They're not, like I said, if you know, that's the positive about it being kind of a generic FPS. You know these type of controls, you can jump right into it and feel comfortable playing the game, so the learning curve isn't that crazy, which is also a positive. The storyline, not the story, but the length of the storyline feels satisfying. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, I just played that, I feel comfortable with the way how long that game was. Now, like I said, if you're a common Resistance player, you're probably going to feel a little like, oh, I wish it was longer, because you probably know what you're doing. You can breeze through it a lot quicker than most people. But for me, I felt comfortable playing it. Now, for the negatives of this thing, this is the single-player people. Basically, you have a very, very generic storyline. It's so basic. Like, I mean, you got this enemy, you got to find the enemy, you get dropped in this location, kill these group of enemies. Oh look, the enemies are escaping. More reinforcements. Defend, attack, defend. It's very generic. That's something that I think they could have, like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're looking for a game and you're strapped for cash, for example, and you want one particular game that will stand out, Resistance just doesn't cut it for story mode. I mean, yeah, it is a decent story. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed the storyline, but it's too generic. It needed something that would make it pop. You know what I mean? But they didn't go that far, which I was a little surprised to see that. But that's one of the major negatives of the game. That's probably one of the only negatives I have about the story mode. So the story mode is actually really solid. So if you're worried about the story mode or the campaign mode, I wouldn't be. This thing has a really solid campaign. Now moving over to the multiplayer. Whoopsie-doo, I dropped the game case right off the thing. Anyways, moving on to multiplayer. Now, oh sorry, I forgot one thing about a negative. I don't want to jump sorry, getting ahead of myself here. One more con was, I know some people are going to like this, some people are going to hate it. What they did was kind of did an homage to classic games, if you will, meaning when you have weapons, you can carry a bunch of weapons. Like, I mean, it's not very realistic, but it's handy. You gotta admit, it's handy. And also, every game nowadays is doing regenerable health. They're not doing that in this one. It's classic, you have to find health and get her done. So basically, it can screw you over in moments, but I found health fairly easily. Although, like I said, it could have spared me a bit of headache if I didn't have to recharge. So I'm going to put it in a con for being a little kind of tedious at times. Now we can get rid of that, and let's move on to multiplayer, because they're very different. Now, the multiplayer itself, I actually liked. Now, like I said, it is generic, which is also a con. Very basic stuff. You know, the same deathmatch, the same capture the flag. Everything you see in an FPS multiplayer game, anything with multiplayer FPS, is in this game. But that's the thing, people are comfortable with it. So while you may say it's generic, you'll be comfortable, you'll have a good time. There's a bunch of maps. I played a lot of maps. I did well, like I said, because of the learning curve, I was able to really jump in easily. However, there were a few problems I had with the multiplayer. For example, when you died, it was like lagged up. So basically, right when you're about to die, there's so much action going on at one point, the frame rate would drop, right? So basically, when the frame rate dropped, there was no way you could defend yourself and you'd be dead. And you wouldn't figure out how you would be dead until it showed who killed you. Sometimes it wouldn't even show you who killed you. It would be so crazy with the frame rate. So that's something I think they could have worked on. The frame rate was kind of sketchy when that happened, and it happened like every single time you're about to die. Basically, when the frame rate started acting up, I knew, okay, I'm dead. You know, because I knew it. You know, there's no way you're getting out of it, because there's so much going on that there's no way you could defend yourself against the attack. So, other than that, though, it is very simplistic, but it is fun. It is comfortable. I enjoyed myself. It was, so on the positive side of things, easy to get into, large amount of maps, so there's different environments, and it was, like I said, you know, that's basically what it's good for. You know, you will be entertained for a good period of time. And on the negative, pretty choppy, laggy at times, and it doesn't have anything to do with connection, and also it is generic. So for multiplayer, that's probably what you're looking at. Very generic FPS, but if you like that sort of thing, you're really going to like this multiplayer. So to sum everything up, single player and multiplayer, to recap briefly, this game, visually, graphics-wise, is really, really beautiful. If you like graphics, and you're going to love this one. Same with the sound quality is amazing. Also, in terms of gameplay, single player, really good, good storyline, decent storyline, really easy controls. Basically, this whole game, the whole positives, good graphics, good controls, decent length, good length, satisfying length. And on the negative side, you have generic. That's a big one. Generic FPS. Skippy at times. Basically, you will get bored fast because of these things, and that's a big thing. That's a big factor. However, if you put all those aside and you really just, you know, compare the positive to the negative, I got to give this game a 7.5. It's not amazing, but it's a good game. It's worth a look, in my opinion. So 7.5. That's my opinion. If you guys agree, if you don't, whatever. I don't care. Let me know what you think about it. 7.5 is what I'm giving Resistance 3. A very decent game. Definitely worth a look, at least, you know. If you don't want to buy it, you can at least try it out with the rental. However, what they're doing with the multiplayer, I should have thrown this in as well. I probably will. It's an online pass, so if you rent the game, you can't activate the pass. I don't know why everybody is cheaping out, but that's another thing, and you lose that for that. So, you do have an online pass you have to pay for, unless you buy the game new, which it'll come with it anyway. But the review's staying where it is, 7.5. I hope you guys agree. If not, I'd love to hear what you say. So, that's my review for Resistance 3. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you later.